the way that you communicate has a ton to do with your success in life. Professional success, personal success, relationships, friendships, happiness, right? I mean, it all comes from this fundamental way of how do we connect with others, and we're never taught how to do it.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Applied Tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Noah Zandan, who's based in Austin, Texas. He's the CEO and co-founder at Quantified. Welcome, Noah. Good to have you on.
Great to be here.
Now, Quantified is a behavioral science platform that enhances human connection. That's what I pulled from your website. It's a fascinating statement, but let's break this down a little bit. Help me understand, what was the problem that you saw and set out to solve?
So, kind of set the stage here. I started my career on Wall Street. I've always been a numbers guy and had one of those investment banking jobs where I'm sleeping under my desk and building pitch books for big transactions. And I got worried about myself. Not only was I not living the healthiest lifestyle, basically living in about a 3-foot zone. But I was learning a lot about finance. I was learning a lot about spreadsheets and numbers and quantitative analysis, but I wasn't learning anything about how to be a leader. And so I'm putting these materials together for my bosses to present and for leaders of companies to present. And I'm like, well, no one's teaching me how to ever do their job. So what happens over the long term, right? Am I just going to continue to do spreadsheets for the rest of my life? And that scared me. I moved on from investment banking to private equity. Honestly, the same thing. I was accountable to diligence and investment analysis, but when it came time to present or really, speak externally on behalf of the company or anything that I was doing, that wasn't anything that I was learning how to do. Went to graduate school, got my MBA, same issue. Again, really, really great guidance on how to do individual contributor skills. But if I wanted to be a leader, if I wanted to motivate and inspire people, that was just left up to chance. And I didn't want to leave that up to chance for the rest of my career.
So you see this challenge, you're like, I'm not getting this anywhere. So this must be a challenge for others. So how did then Quantified start? It was 2012 that you began it.
Yeah.
And it's not what it is today. So what was the initial thesis for it?
Yeah, so I was selfish in that it was my problem, but I was also in an MBA program and able to look at 750 classmates, all of whom had similar wants, right? I mean, a similar desire to be leaders and to learn the skills of leadership. And we know that the human skills, the soft skills, the connection skills are so important, but the theory has always been that those can't really be taught. They're just supposed to be picked up along the way. So, what I started doing, I mean, I wanted to hire a coach, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm going to go hire a coach. So I did an internet search, and the number one person who popped up on Google, had a cat on his lap and just did not look like the type of guidance that I wanted for my professional career. And so I asked a few people, I said, do you know any great coaches? And I found one. And then I called him up and said, hey, can you work with me, right? Can you teach me how to be a better leader, a better communicator, teach me how to speak externally and represent myself well? He said, sure, my rate's $10,000 a day. I said, whoa, that's a lot of money. I said, okay, so assuming that I can afford that on my student budget, when can I get a session with you? He said, I'm booked up for the next 6 months. So I said to myself, there's something interesting here, right? I mean, if this is a need that I have, that all of my peers have coming out of, the backgrounds that we did, and this isn't, I can't find someone to pay that I feel appropriate in fixing this, then this could be a bigger problem than maybe I even assumed for myself.
So you're trying to set it up to find it, to fix it for yourself. And you're like, wow, this is not as easy as I thought it'd be. It's too expensive. So let's start. Walk me through the years. So when you began 2012. What did that first year look like?
So I sort of said I started my career on Wall Street, right? I'm an economics major. I love math and science. My dad's an evaluation research PhD. My sister does psychoanalytics. My mom's a teacher. Okay, so I like thinking about things with a lot of structure and a lot of numbers. And I said, if I want to think about how to solve this on a bigger scale than just for myself, then I need to have some pattern recognition. I need to have some data. I need to have some proof and some evidence. And so I set out on actually what ended up being a 2-year journey to go look at a meta-analysis of a bunch of computational social science, a bunch of psychology research, a bunch of communication research and said, like, what's behind this stuff, right? We've been studying human interaction for a long time, right? The field of social science has existed for a very long time, but like we now are at this ability, we have this ability with data and technology to look at human interactions in a very different way. Mm-hmm. And has anyone done that, right? Has anyone gone and studied how much does voice matter? How much does facial matter? How much does gestures and words matter? And what are the right ways to do those to inspire or move or motivate people? There's a lot there, right? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but yeah.
You make such an interesting point, because I'm trying to imagine some of the listeners, some of those who are watching this, thinking, well, why would you analyze it so much? It just is. Like it is. You feel it. You test it, but you're not wrong in the fact that the data is there, whether you want to recognize.
You're right. I mean, look, the data is there, and if you think about it, right, it is. This is something from I have very young kids, right, and they're learning how to talk, they're learning how to interact and get what they want from those interactions, and it's just something we as humans pick up. But if you think about it, the way that you communicate has a ton to do with your success in life. Professional success, personal success, relationships, friendships, happiness, right? I mean, it all comes from this fundamental way of how do we connect with others, and we're never taught how to do it, right? It's crazy. Like we never try to get better at this thing that has such a huge impact on our personal success and happiness and equity and all these other things in the world. And I was like, well, there's got to be a way to help people with this, right? I have this problem, like, let's figure it out.
Let's figure it out. So you take a very analytical approach to really taking 2 years to define human interaction in data terms? I start by hiring all these PhDs and having them look at all of the existing research. And then my father, who's a co-founder, has an evaluation research PhD. So we scrape a bunch of videos from the web and we start showing them to focus groups, essentially, right? And asking them all these really interesting questions that people haven't asked about this stuff. Like, hey, when Noah talks, do you like him? Would you listen to him more? Would you buy something from him? Would you engage with him, right? And you start getting these patterns of these outcomes, these audience reactions, okay? Then at the same time, what I started doing was taking all of those same videos and looking at what words are said. What do people do with their voices and their faces and their gestures? So I was creating a two-sided database, right? I was creating, on the one side, here's all of these human behaviors, and here's the reactions that those behaviors get, and starting to build models, algorithms, essentially, to connect the two. And that's what I spent 2 years building. It sounds, boom, you're done. I'm sure there's more. There's way more to that story. But let's just assume, okay, you've built this algorithm, this connection, this data point, so that effectively you feed something into it, and out comes a categorization of you're good, you're bad, this is where you need to improve.
It essentially started to become a prediction, right? Because what I could start to say is if you use a certain type of word, people are going to trust you more. If you speak at a certain rate, people will think that you're more confident. And then you don't need to ask the audience anymore, because you have statistically significant data on the input side that you can just take a piece of text, a piece of video, a piece of audio, run it through algorithms and say, hey, this person's in the top 10% of doing this behavioral pattern. So we are highly predictive that audiences are going to respond in this way.
So you write a script for yourself to use in a sales call or in a board meeting, and you can run it through and say, oh, okay, this language works well. Or you record yourself doing a prep, and you can see, okay, I'm good, or I need to change things.
Exactly, right. And so it gets past that. Well, when you think about how to prepare, right, you're supposed to speak to a mirror, or you're supposed to ask a peer, right, or even just self-evaluation. None of those things work. They don't help people, right? So this helps people.
When you started, was it just written, or did you already start with voice and facial recognition to be able for these algorithms to understand?
So I've been doing it for 9 years. And back when we started, the concepts of like automated transcription didn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. And there was definitely natural language processing research. I was lucky to convince a guy named James Pennebaker here at the University of Texas, Austin, to help me with some foundational natural language processing and computational linguistics work. So NLP was pretty far along. Voice stuff, not really until like the Alexa technologies came forward, and facial stuff has been the third wave of enabling technology for us to be able to do it. Interestingly, when I look at how to get a great reaction from someone in a conversation and connection, it's the inverse of the factors. So the facial factors are the most important. Second most is voice. Third most is the content that you use. So the technology has actually been an inverse development from what's the most important factors in our model.
So I'm assuming as the years have progressed, you've been adding more of those layers into the technology. So a lot, even more success has happened now that you've added some of these later layers.
So the models get more accurate and they get more explainable. And that's the benefit that we have of people and a lot of great companies and great researchers investing in this stuff more and more. There's so much enabling technology around video analytics now that just we didn't have 9 years ago when we started this.
So how are folks using it today? Well, what's the product? What's the business model?
So we've evolved it, right? I mean, again, we had this really interesting data set, which you're laughing at me and teasing me because I'm like sitting here with my data in my computer, but no real use case. And we initially rolled it out to very, very senior executives. They were frankly a little frustrated with the opinions of their team. So you'd go to this big keynote at CES, you do your big earnings call, you're moving the stock price, and you turn to your head of communications and you say, how did that go? And you're their boss, right? So they're not going to say, hey, Noah, that was terrible. Right?
Good. You did great.
Yeah. It's a lot of like attaboys, right? And so these very senior executives, Fortune 500 C-suite execs kept turning to us saying, can you tell us the truth? Like, can your data get past the niceties and tell us actually how we do? And by the way, can you benchmark me against these 3 people that I really compare about and want to beat? And can you start showing me the accuracy of this model in predicting reactions like stock price? So we rolled this out for executives. In the end, I wanted to build a product, right? And so there was a little bit of tension at the company at the time. We were building essentially like a managed service data aided coaching business. And we always knew that we had enough foundational data to start building more of a SaaS product. And so we used all of that training data and all of that experience in building a coaching business to actually fuel the construction of a world-class SaaS enterprise platform. And that's the business today.
No, there are other solutions that are coming up like Gong and things where they're analyzing it. But how do you view that, what they're doing of recording it versus of your approach?
Yeah. I mean, I love what they're doing, right? So to take all of these conversations and create a system of record for it is a really, really powerful thing. Integrating that as the data integration into CRM and other platforms is very, very smart. We're sort of, having run sales teams, right? We're sort of asking for their opinion about something. And again, I told you I run on science. So would love to have actual data that I can go look at or systems. I think the biggest difference for us is we take those recordings, we have a lot of that enabling technology too. Our analytics actually score all the calls, right? And it scores it according to your selling model, according to the behaviors of your top performers. So instead of how some of those platforms would suggest a playlist or sort of be taped for a sales manager or sales leader to review, we're going to surface that intelligence and insights automatically and say, here's what your top performers are doing. Here's coaching for them to make them even better. Here's what your people that are at the bottom of the pack are doing. Let's coach them and support them on this path. Here's who's certified is ready. And so that automated scoring and the ability to do the behavioral analysis at a deeper level is the biggest differentiator for us.
Automating the workflow of improvement for each person individually at scale is...
Yeah, it's kind of the last mile, right? It's like, okay, we have this record of how people are doing, but can I make those people better? And we're really focused on can I make these people better? Because then we know we can create better outcomes. The knowledge is really valuable, but the prescriptive improvement, I believe, is even better.
And as you were mentioning earlier of the fact that where everyone's on video calls now, sales calls are happening. I mean, your bot, just like others, just effectively just joins a call and is doing that automatically.
It is, yeah. We've tried to build in a way that's not going to be obtrusive to the rep. It's not going to be obtrusive to the prospect. You got to make sure there's consent and you respect privacy and all those other things. But through integrations with Zoom and Teams, you can just basically place a bot into the room and into the meeting and get great intelligence and coaching and feedback from doing that. And it's not intrusive at all. It's integrated into people's calendars and just shows up automatically.
What was the year time frame? So you kind of shared that the year that you started, 2012, you spent 2 years on development, so that's 2014.
Yep.
What was kind of the next phases then of that coaching and then to SaaS?
Yeah, so about 3 years of building a data-driven coaching business, learning how to do that well. We built an application that enabled us to do that, right? So we're doing all of the reporting at scale and looking at all the patterns and doing a lot of data science research. Then we actually rolled the SaaS product out initially in higher education. We didn't take it to the enterprise; we took it to higher education. We had a lot. I got an MBA. We had a lot of leaders of MBA programs saying, "Hey, I've seen what you're working on. I've seen some of your research and stuff. Like, can you bring that in for our students?" And so it was a wonderful thing because academic researchers will tell you the truth, right? If they believe it, if they don't, if they like it, they don't. So it was this really fertile testing ground for us. So 3 years of really building the coaching for executives business, about 2 years of working mostly in higher education. We had a lot of pull of people that graduated and wanted to take us into their companies. And then in 2019, we launched it towards the enterprise, which is our focus today.
Got it. Wow. Now, I'd like to circle back to then a little bit more on where you guys are headed and playing the role now. But going back, did you bootstrap this? Did you just have funds from your successful working in finance? Are you just applying this, or what was that journey?
So we did bootstrap the business. We've raised a small amount of convertible debt, just some sort of. Go ahead.
You say we, is it yourself, your father, I think you said?
Yeah, father's the co-founder, so when I say we, I mean we as a company, but also my father and I as the founders.
Gotcha.
We bootstrapped it. Yeah.
And a small convertible debt, I think I heard you say, which got you rolling. Have you completely been bootstrapped the entire time? I think customer funded or
pretty unique. So we first 2 years we completely funded ourselves. Then we raised a convertible round, started building the coaching business, and we were making plenty of money doing the coaching business. And so we paid the convertible debt back. So sort of said, like, we're not going to convert this, right? Like, we've got a business that's cash flowing. Here's your money back. Some interesting conversations with investors. And then really it wasn't until we felt like we found product market fit that we went out and raised $2 million of convertible debt just to accelerate the timescale that we're able to construct it. And so that wasn't until 2020 that we raised about $2.5 million of convertible debt. So we've essentially operated the business very, very, operated ourselves and built it off of revenue.
Would you do it again that way?
So, no, I wouldn't.
No. Okay.
Look, I started a nonprofit before I started this business, but this is my first tech company. And I've been doing it for 9 years. I've learned a lot about patterns and execution and speed. And I think I could do it a lot faster again. And I appreciated that not having, not having venture money and allowed us to operate at a different pace and really build our science and build our product market fit at a pace that we wanted to learn. But I think that if I were to do it again, I would certainly consider the option of if we really accelerated some of those product market fit and the execution and scaling of the business, that it would make sense to raise money.
Competition, the advent of facial recognition or detection and voice detection, the technology is now everywhere, which is good. It's being able to be proliferated. How has that affected or not affected your business?
So, I would tell you there's plenty of great technology when it comes to natural language processing or voice analysis or facial analysis, right? That, and especially transcription, it's essentially commoditized, right? And so while we need to be good at that, really what we need to be exceptional at is the algorithms, right? The translation. And then furthermore, even if I just give you the data, I need to tell you how to fix these things, right? And that's the prescriptive feedback that sits on top of the data. Those are the parts that we have invested in so carefully. We're lucky, right? A lot of times we use a third-party transcription. We don't use our own transcription engine because there's big companies that are investing a lot in that and have, can commoditize the market. And it's it's much better to make a buy versus build decision there. We do have, like anybody, we have competition. It comes from a variety of angles. There's a lot of individual sort of experts and coaches and trainers that do this, right? If you think about everything from executive communication coaches to sales trainers to leadership development experts. That a lot of people have generally individual practices or some firms that do this, and they're really good. They really are really good. The difference is we have built a platform with the intention of scale, right? Of really looking 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 100,000 people a day using a platform. A coach could never do that, right? They can sit in front of a room or they can videotape themselves and spread out, a great online course, but they can't sit there with every person in the course and say, hey, Noah, here's your capability and here's a personalized learning path to make you exceptional at this. Coaches can't do that. There are great sales training companies. There's a lot of great sales tech platforms that do some coaching. And so we certainly see competition from them as well.
The focus for you going forward, then you say scale, that's what you're focused on, right? That's world-class SaaS platform is the words you were sharing. Where are people, where's the mindset right now? I think I saw on the website, like video calls. Is it looking at video calls and see how you did in the sales side? Like, what's the use cases?
So the biggest use case for us, probably not surprisingly, is if we can have an impact on revenue. Right. And so when companies look at us and say, wow, if you could make my sales team better, if you could make my customer success team better, any customer facing team, we're going to be able to show a demonstrable ROI on revenue. And that's the most exciting use case for our clients. We get to do leadership development work. We're still doing that in higher education and across a wide variety of global companies. But really the most compelling use cases and where we're seeing the fastest growth is in customer facing verticals.
Has it been a perfect uphill journey? No problems. But like, where's some realities hit? Any plateaus that you hit and had to like overcome?
The hardest thing about running this business, and this has been really a learning for us for a long time, is it's a very, very horizontal use case. Right? I mean, when it comes to communicating, this is a fundamental human behavior. We spend 80% of our time at work communicating in some form or fashion, right? And we're here to make that a little bit better. But the issue is everybody does it all day, right? And so you have this really wide use case of potential uses. How does a company, at an earlier stage, focus on the best ones? What are the right ones to attack, build product for, build repeatable patterns of usage and value for, has been really the biggest strategic thing for us to figure out. It's been a challenge.
And your team is how many today?
We're about 20 today. So
being able to have the right team to be able to do that, is there any lessons learned on kind of cultivating that team as you've grown, and the lessons learned there?
I think the biggest thing for us has been, we had a lot of domain expertise in-house, right? And so we really built up a lot of research, a lot of communication expertise, a lot of data science in-house. And, that team has been wonderful and wonderfully foundational what we do. The second part of that became, product development. And then the third part of that has become go-to-market, right? So these different phases of team development have been sort of different focuses for me on as we put all these puzzle pieces together to build this out. But I've got a fantastic team, and I'm really excited about the level of talent that I have around me.
The growth is like building something. First, you have to have the right team members that can actually create something unique and it serves a purpose. But then to bring it to market and bring value requires other individuals. Has there been any pushback on the marketplace of adopting, using this technology in improving their own behavioral interactions with other humans?
I would say generally our users love it, right? I mean, we have NPS scores in the 60s and 70s from our user base, and the admins and buyers are even higher from an NPS perspective. So people love it. I think the biggest pushback that we see, honestly, is generally from coaches. We're doing something that they have this deep expertise in, right? And there's a very personal expertise to what they do. Coaches are fantastic. We love coaches. We partner with coaches a lot, but we're coming in and saying, we're taking this expertise, this perspective that you have when you see someone talk, and we're automating that. And by the way, we count every single word, every face, every gesture, every piece of eye contact, right? And a coach can't do that. A human can't do that. So sometimes they do feel a little bit threatened by the ability of the technology to do 80-90% of what they're able to do.
Are coaches going to be out of a job in the future?
I think what I hope to do is standardize and create some science behind what the coaches do, right? I mean, think back to that first story I told you of. I tried to hire a coach and it was, a guy on the internet with a cat on his lap, right? And like that guy giving coaching with our platform and the science and the standards and the benchmarks and the validation, he can do an amazing job for his clients, right? I mean, imagine coaching a runner and never being able to get their time, right? I mean, you would sort of have your theory and your opinion. You'd be like, that person's fast and that person's not. But like the stats are so enabling for people when it comes to being exceptional at something. And so, giving that to coaches, giving that directly to users and to companies is really powerful.
What are you most interested or excited about when it comes to the technology in this space?
So the biggest change for us was we've been sort of video first, right? I mean, so much of our analytics depend on video. And up until 2020, we were always video as a proxy for what someone would do in person. And so we had to spend a lot of time talking to people how, look, recording yourselves over video is representative of what you would do in a meeting or what you do on stage. And then COVID hits. And all of a sudden, the world of communication is digitized in a way that, we're not going back, right? I mean, there's plenty of research done. We've done primary research. There's plenty of secondary research saying that the worlds of selling and the worlds of leadership, I mean, this virtual thing is here to stay. We've all gotten pretty comfortable with it. And so that has been really enabling for us. If you think about how many digital interactions you had pre-COVID versus post-COVID, we get a ton more data, right? A ton more data and a ton more sample. And more data means better data, and we can help people more. And so people also have much more belief in a digital solution to the problem because they're now digitally communicating.
Mm-hmm. It's that entire adoption of technology across the board because of COVID. If I'm going to do a video call, well, why not get the video call analyzed and so I can learn from it and be able to improve? What can you share of your roadmap and what you're excited about coming up for what you guys are doing?
So we're doing a ton. I think for us, the real focus, right? You asked earlier about one of the challenges. We're helping people with something that's really personal to them, right? I mean, this is a personal thing. How you show up to other people, in the end, it's emotional. And so much of what we want to do is we want to give you that great feedback. We want to give you that benchmarking, and then we want to comfort you through an improvement process, right? We're here to support you. And I think one of the biggest things for us is we have amazing data about how people are doing. We can boil that data, all the way up to leadership to show how teams are doing and how messaging is resonating and what behaviors create great outcomes. So much of what we want to focus on and what we do focus on in our roadmap is how do we create a great experience for the user and help support them through a growth process. And the way that people learn and the way that people create lasting behavioral change is a big focus. We learn a lot about that from looking at our usage patterns, and a lot of our near-term roadmap is really supporting users and supporting their growth patterns.
How you communicate the data matters, not just saying, all right, you're a crappy communicator, get better.
Well, imagine walking in, and this is the experience we have. Imagine walking in with a Fortune 20 CEO and looking at their numbers and seeing they're in the bottom quartile of the Fortune 500. Right? How they show up, or seeing that they're not authentic or not trustworthy, and having to share that with them. Right. And, sort of every day we're giving people something. 90% of people think they're better than average drivers. Right. So if you were to go poll people and say, are you a better than average communicator? You would imagine what the results would be. And so we have to be really careful with how we share that with people and how we support people through that growth journey.
I wonder if a lot of people look at the data and like, that's not true. That can't be true. I'm better than that.
They do. And it's our job to sit there and support them as they have that experience, right? I mean, they do. We all do, right? It's self-perception. I mean, part of what we're fighting here, right, is self-evaluation and self-perception is just not that good. Like, we're not very good at understanding ourselves. And also, so much of what we communicate, there's some really good research about this out of Caltech. So much of what we communicate is actually subconscious. I don't even know if I'm keeping good eye contact with you because I'm just sort of using these behavioral patterns that are ingrained, but I might be doing something that really throws you off and no one's ever told me before.
It's a whole mind shift for the individual, or heart shift, however you want to look at it, that has to happen. Coming to the technology for a moment again, for a second, what you have developed, I imagine others could want. Are you guys ever approach API connections, et cetera, so that your analysis could be embedded in other solutions?
We've certainly considered it. Right now, one of the biggest pieces of IP for us is our database, right? So having the inputs of thousands of videos and then the videos that have been evaluated and the predictive models. So, owning that part of our tech stack is really sort of fundamental to what we do. We're happy to sort of input videos through APIs and to export our results through APIs. The sort of core part we're holding true, but we're approached very frequently about partnerships and integration. And one of the things that we do really want to do is we want to play nice and work well with others. We know we're really, really good at what we do, but it's a component of it, right? I mean, if you look at what makes a great salesperson, they need to know what to say and they need to know how to say it. And then they need to run a good process. There's analytics that we have on all three of those, but there's also great companies that do other components of that, sales intelligence, conversational intelligence. And we really will integrate with that.
Okay, powerful. So is there any particular guiding principle or word of wisdom that, like, if it was on a poster board or something, that you kind of hold true and helps you make decisions and go forward?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is we run on science. It's just we're trying to be as objective as we can. We're trying to sort of break this theory-based world of human connection, and sort of, as you said, right? It's something you just sort of think you have and you know how to do, and you don't necessarily have this urgency to fix. But if I show you the outcomes that you can have in your life from fixing it, and the power of that potential success for your life, and then if I guide you on that improvement path using really research validated scientific stuff, that's a really guiding principle for us, is to really do this objectively and do it right.
In a lot of my past conversations with technology leaders, I come to realize that in many areas of our life, technology will come to replace what we do, manual effort, activities, said this, whatever. But what won't go away is our interaction with each other. Being able to empathize, be able to tell stories, be able to interact, that will remain. And putting a focus on getting better at that probably is a good idea. Thank you so much, Noah, for helping me understand the journey that you've been on, building this, and the direction of where you're headed. For those that want to learn more, you can go over to quantified.ai. As far as folks that are kind of the best fit for what you guys are doing, anything you can share of like the typical organizations you work with?
Yeah, so any leader of a customer-facing team, sales enablement, chief revenue officers, we're really, really good at helping customer-facing teams understand the power of great connection, who's good at it, how to replicate those behaviors, and how to scale those behaviors across your entire organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Noah. Great to have you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we'll see you all on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.